Okay, so this is a video recording of the chapter 4 review. It'll be one of two different videos I'll probably do. The next one will be the practice test. Now, the format of this video is going to be me going through each of these questions, right? I'll be probably screen sharing back and forth between this page and my whiteboard. I'll go through number 1, A, switch, B, switch, C, switch, and continue doing so until we work through. So the video might be a little expensive, it might be a little long, but I hope you'll follow through. In case you didn't have the document, it's basically the same handout that I gave you in class. So if you want to pause and sort of screenshot these videos because you don't have it at home, go ahead. This will be number 3 we're going to do together. This is going to be number 4 we do together. Sorry. This will be number 5 that we do together. Number 6 and 7 you see underneath. And then number 8 and number 9. So these are some preliminary skills that I think you will need. Let's get started. Number 1, 1A. It says, read the following scenarios. Identify what mathematical property must be found, like vertex, x-intercepts, so on. Briefly explain how you came to that decision, and then check your answer key to confirm. Right? So I guess this could be our answer key. Let's read. A plastic glider, in other words, a paper airplane, is launched from a hilltop. So just to make myself feel better, here's my plane and I'm going to launch it. The height of the glider above the ground at a given time is modeled by the equation, blah, 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 where h of t is height and t is time in seconds. How far from the ground does the glider fall before lifting off again? Well, that's nice. That already tells me that most likely it's going to go down and then back up in the shape of a parabola. How else do I know it's a parabola? Well, there's a t squared. How else do I know it's going down? Notice that the a value is positive. Lots of clues there to tell you what's happening. Now, the word says, how far from the ground does the glider fall? In other words, what's the lowest point before coming back up? 1A is going to be looking for vertex. Okay. So we'll do that after. 1B, the height of a soccer ball kicked in the air is given by the equation, blah, 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 where h of t is in meters, time is in seconds. When does the soccer ball land on the ground? So again, just to give me some visual, I'm going to pretend I am kicking a soccer ball. And when it kicks, well, everything that goes up must come down. And so I have a parabola. How do I know it's a parabola? Well, the highest degree is a 2. How else do I know that it's an upside down? Well, the a value is a negative. When does the soccer ball land on the ground? That essentially is asking, when is the height of 0 and height of 0? When is the height of 0? Your mathematical calculation should be giving you 2 different locations. Only one of them referred to the soccer ball landing back on the ground. With that said, I'm assuming you understand it's going to be this one because you have to pick it before it lands on the ground. This question is looking for y and x-intercepts. In other words, if you want to solve this question, you're probably going to need the quadratic formula. And we'll do that in a second. Number 1C, the profit of a bowling alley for one day can be modeled by the equation, blah, 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 where P is in dollars and X is a number of customers in hundreds. What number of customers a day would maximize profit? Ooh, key word right there. I will not go any further. If I want to solve for a maximized profit, forget what it actually requires. Keyword maximize means I need to find vertex. And when you find the vertex, you'll find X and Y. Which of these numbers, X or Y, refer to profit? Well, profit is P. It's going to be the Y value. Second question says, what number of customers would let the bowling alley break even? That's a keyword. That means profit is a 0. That's like saying the Y value is a 0. Sound familiar? That second question is asking for the x-intercepts. Let's move on. Question 2, it says perform your approach for each question in the question 1. Check answers to confirm. Now would be a good time for me to switch over to my white screen. We will be doing 1A together. The equation is this. H of t, 0.25 t squared minus 0.375 t plus 15.0625. And again, I am looking for the vertex. So there's a couple of ways you can do it, but the main way that we've learned is completing the square. I am going to group the first 2 terms together because I'm going to common factor, and I will leave the last term alone. Not only that, I am going to factor out the coefficient of that squared term because, well, I want a simple trinomial inside that. So 0.25 divided by 0.25, pretty straightforward. That's going to be a 1. 0.375 divided by 0.25 is going to leave us with a negative 1.5 g. Continuing, we take this number divided by 2 and square it. That's going to be positive 0.5625, is it? And when you add something, you can't just add for no reason. We need to justify and make sure the equation still equals the previous line. So I subtract by 5625. So that's essentially a 0. There, I like the first 3 terms. I don't like my 4th term. So I am going to take that out of the bracket. But when I do so, it will be multiplied by the a value because everything inside the bracket is multiplied by the a value. I get myself negative 0.140625 plus 15.0625. And that gives me, I'm going to factor this now into perfect squared. This is negative 0.75. Remember, if you're having trouble figuring out how to go from this line to this line, it's that b value divided by 2. That's a trick. Because if you have this divided by 2, negative 0.75 plus itself will give you negative 1.5. Negative 0.75 times itself will give you the c value. So let me just finish this off before I make a quick comment. Oh, that's a positive. Okay. So in terms of the context of the question, remember, this is a glider. The vertex is going to be positive 0.75 and then 14.921875. Now, sorry, let me continue. So at time 0.75 seconds, I will reach my lowest height, which is approximately 14.9 meters before it goes back upwards. Because, you know, that's what gliders do. Okay, please do not be afraid of decimals. The process is still the same. So even if the numbers look wonky, you should be very confident in what you are doing. That's 1A. Let's go to 1B. 1B is a soccer ball question, and the equation looks like this. So follow along with me. You should have the paper in front of you. If not, write it down here, just like I am. By the way, quick disclaimer, you can pause the video if you need to. Part B is asking when the soccer ball lands on the ground. That essentially means my height is a 0. Let me fix it. This equation is equal to a 0. What is t? This should give you a clear indication that I'm looking to find x-intercepts. However, I don't want to factor this. Another solution to factoring is using the quadratic formula. Now, this is really going to be messy. But even before I calculate all this, I'm going to do the discriminant on the side to check if it's going to be a negative or not. It saves you a lot of time. That's b squared minus 4 times a times c. And so let me quickly do that on the calculator. 20.58 squared minus 4, which was multiplied by a negative 4.9, which was also multiplied by 1.391. So it's a positive. Inside the square root is a 450.8, which is going to be approximately a plus or a minus 21.23. Let's just round it. So my time is going to be a negative b plus or minus 21.23 all over 2 times a, which is a negative 9.8. My first value for time would be, let's see, divided by negative 9.8, negative 0.0665. The other time would be negative 20.58 minus 21.23 divided by negative 9.8. That is going to be a positive 4.266. If I were to draw this, my x-intercepts are negative 0.0665 and 4.266. So my soccer ball gets kicked pretty high. Which of these 2 points represents when the ball lands? I'm going to say this one. It also doesn't make sense for us to count time backwards. When do you ever start a stopwatch, let's say in the Olympics, and the time begins at a negative? Makes no sense. And so this is rejected. You always have to tell me that it's rejected for a valid reason, right? In this case, time should start at 0. And so the ball will land, the ball lands 4 let's round it, 27 seconds after being kicked. Okay, let's go to number 1C. So this one's the profit of the bowling alley. I'm going to write the equation, and then I will answer both questions a little bit faster this time. Profit is negative 12.5 squared plus 75x plus 2,000. What number of customers a day would maximize profit? Maximize. I need vertex form. So I'm going to quickly do this. At this point in time, I'm going to ask you to try to calculate or try to do the completing the square without me. And then check your answers with me, because this is no longer, what am I supposed to do? This is a mechanical sort of mathematical technique that you should have lots and lots of practice doing already. So fast forwarding, it should be plus 9 minus 9 plus 2,000. So my final answer is going to look like So 12.5 times 9, it's going to be a positive. Ain't too much money, I guess. Not much more than what we have already. Okay. And there it is. That's my profit. So my vertex, assuming that this is correct, again, I'm going this on the fly, so I could be wrong. But if this equation was correct, that means my vertex is 3 and 2,112 and 5. In other words, 50 cents. What does this mean? It means that if my X is 3, my Y is this. It means if my X being the number of customers is hundreds. Therefore, if 300 customers come a day, my max profit is 2,112 and 50 cents. Next, the second question in that same scenario asks what the number of customers would have to be if you wanted to break even. By even, I mean profit is 0. Does that look familiar? If you want to figure out what X is to make the Y value a 0 in this case, you're going to have to quadratic formula, right? So even before I do that, let me do discriminant. It saves you a lot of time. B squared minus 4 times A times C. So 75 squared minus 4 times negative 125, oh, 12.5, sorry, 12.5 times 2,000. Square root that is 325 on the dot. Interesting. Okay. So if I wanted to break even, we would have X is equal to negative B plus minus, sorry, I already calculated that, 325 divided by 2 times A, that's going to be negative 25. All right, so let's do this. Again, assuming I didn't make a calculator mistake, which I don't think I did because the numbers are nice. 325 would be coincidence if it is, divided by negative 25. The X value could be negative 10, or X value could be negative 25 minus 25 divided by negative 25. It could be 16. Okay, so if I wanted to break even, it doesn't make sense to have a negative number of customers, right? That doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to reject that. I'm going to take this instead. But remember, the X value is in hundreds. So if I want to make a profit of 0, I would need 1,600 customers coming. Now, realistically speaking, you might think that makes no sense. And you're right, but maybe there's some kind of catch with this business model. Maybe the bowling alley, if there's way too many people, they have to hire security guards because you can't have more than a certain number of people inside a closed building. That's a bylaw in Toronto, at least. Maybe you have to hire more people to clean up garbage like food waste and whatever. Or little kids throwing up, or I don't know. There must be some reason why there's more expenses if you have more customers. So it's possible. That is number 1. And I did basically number 2 together because you have to perform it. Hope that helps. Let's move on to number 2. So we've got in the chapter review, this time I have a graph. A profit tech company is set to model be modeled by the function this, where profit is in thousands of dollars, X the amount of money spent in advertising. Miles used a graphing software to see what the function might look like and got this. The software is unusually complex and Miles is not sure if the graph matches the function. Use 3 different ways to prove that this is good, okay? So here's a couple of things I think might be useful for us. Number one, I noticed that the vertex is 5, -50. Maybe we can check to see if the vertex of this matches that. Number two, I noticed that the y-intercept is 0, -125. Maybe we can plug in x value equals a 0 and see what the y value turns into. And if it matches 0, -125, that's another argument. A third argument is, what about the x-intercepts? I'm not quite sure what the x-intercepts are, but judging from the axes, it does look like a 1 and a 9. I could be wrong, but maybe we can do quadratic formula to see if the x equals a 1 and a 9 when the y value is a 0. Okay, so let's try it. I'm going to switch back to my whiteboard. So this is number 3, based on the graph. You have x, -3x² plus 30x minus 125. Okay, so let's first check the vertex. I am going to complete the square to see if the vertex matches. See, take the -10, divide by 2n², that's a 25. And if I add a 25, I have to automatically subtract as well, just to make sure the equation is not changed. Then I am going to take out the fourth term because I only want a trinomial in here. When the -25 is taken out, it becomes multiplied by the a value, bam. Final form, x minus 5² minus 50. But would you look at that? The vertex is a 5, -50. That matches my graph. Argument 1, done. Argument 2, if x is a 0, what's my y? The graph says the y is going to be -125. Well, let's plug in a 0, squared. Single. The first term, obviously, will be a 0. Second term, obviously, will be a 0. If x is a 0, my y value is -125, and that matches. The third argument, as I said, is going to be quadratic formula. There's my a, there's my b, there's my c, and then I am going to let's see. So x is going to be -b plus minus the discriminant all over 2 times a, which is -6. The discriminant I'm just going to do on the side, square root of b² minus 4 times a times c, which is 30² minus 4 times -3 times -125. Oh, okay, that's -600. Is that even possible? No, that's not possible. In other words, this is so sad. There is no x-intercept. X does not exist. It doesn't exist. Does that make sense? Well, you know what? Let's go back to the graph. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. If you go back to the graph, take a look. I have my y-axis here and my x-axis here. I was wrong to say that this was my x-axis. Take a look at that's at -100. I was totally wrong. So if you look at this model, what can you tell me about the x-axis? in the graph. I'm creating an answer key right now, but that's okay. It doesn't cross. What does this imply about this tech company? This tech company will never make a positive Y value. This tech company will never make a positive P. This tech company is going to go bankrupt. That's a logical explanation based on this graph. So based on my calculations, there's no x-intercept. And you're right, this graph doesn't have any x-intercept. So those are my three arguments to say that Miles probably did this right. He probably graphed this correctly. Right? All right. I think, all right, let's keep going. Number 4, I might be able to do this on the spot. A graph is provided, analyze this and write this in factored forms. This is something that we've done in our assignment, so I hope you recognize it. In factored form means this style. And guess what? I gave you very nice x-intercepts. Those x-intercepts belong in R and S. So minus a -2 is +2, minus a +4 is -4. Next, we're half done. I need to find the A value. And to do that, I need one more point. Lo and behold, the Y value is -16 if the X value is 0. So I am going to multiply this out. 2 times -4 is a -18. And then get A all alone by dividing both sides by -8. We have +2. My final equation is 2. X plus 2, X minus 4. Done. Use it to determine the equation in standard form. I'm not going to essentially show you step by step because I expect you to know it. To go from here to standard form, you are going to expand. So this becomes x squared minus 2x minus 8. You can take your time to solve it, which is going to be 2x squared minus 4x minus 16. Because it might be confusing, I'm going to keep number 4 here, but I want you to jump down to question 6, and it says, take the equation from here, question 4, and find the vertex. So find that. Notice how I didn't give you that actual point, but I want you to find it. Well, how do you go from here to get the vertex? I recommend vertex form, but you could also work around it by using the x-intercepts, finding the axis of symmetry, and then figuring out the y value for that. For the sake of studying for this test, I'm going to compute the square. F of x is going to be 2x squared minus 2x, and minus 16 is outside. This is 2x squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 1 minus 16. And this is 2x squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 2 minus 16. Remember, I'm just going through the steps for completing the square. This is x minus 1 squared, and that is minus 18. So the vertex, according to this, should be 1, -18. Does that look about right to you? I would say so, right? Remember, this is a 4, that's a 2. So I'm guessing this is going to be 1. And this is -16. So I'm going to say -18 makes sense. The vertex, -1 and -18 look good. Here's number 4. Last one I'm going to do for this video is number 5. This time a graph is given and I give you the vertex. Analyze it, determine its equation in vertex form. Here it is. Vertex form will look like this. That means I have my vertex as a -4 and a +5. You're half done. All you need now is the A value. To do that, we need some other point. I give you a 0, -3. So my Y value is a -3 when the X value is a 4. This means 0 plus 4 squared is 16. Minus 5 from both sides, -8 equals A times 16. And so A must be divided by 16, -1/2. So my vertex form is -12 x plus 4 squared plus 5. The question then says, please use this to determine the equation in standard form. Again, you should know how to do this. Standard form means you're going to have to multiply this out. So this would be x squared plus 8x plus 16. Again, I'm going a little fast because I'm going to assume you can pause the video and try it. Continue expanding. That would be -12 x squared minus 4x. And that is a -8 plus a 5. That's a -3. And that's it. Question 7 says, take the equation from question 5 and determine the x-intercepts. Now, I could go ahead and try to factor this, but for the sake of practicing for the quiz or for the test, I am going to pretend that the Y value is equal to a 0, because, x-intercept, and use the quadratic formula. This is -b plus minus square root of the discriminant all over 2 times a. 2 times a half is a -1. So I'm going to do the discriminant on my own. I'd like you to try as well. B squared, so yeah, b squared minus 4ac. B squared minus 4 times a times c. That gives me 22. So this is going to be plus minus approximately 4.7. So that is 4 plus minus 4.7 divided by 1. X is going to be 4 plus 4.7. It could be a -8.7 or minus 0.7 divided by 1. That, or it could be negative, is that right? 4 plus 1.7. Might have done something wrong. I'm getting myself a positive 0.7. Just give me one more moment. Let's see. We have negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. Oh, that's a square root of 10. Sorry, yeah, so that would be, I did make a mistake, 4 plus minus 3.16. So 4 plus 3.16 divided by -1 is going to be -7.16. 4 minus 3.16 divided by -1 is going to be -0.84. And I think that makes sense. Remember, that's an 8, 6, 4, and -2. That looks to be just under -1, and that looks to be just over -7. Okay. So I think we got it. So all of these skills, I think, are going to be useful for you, whether it's a word problem or not. I'd like you to continue practicing. A video like this will be made as well for your Chapter 4 practice test. So if you do have the opportunity to try it over the weekend, this should be ready for you. Okay, hope this helps and study hard.